Right. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're up to 50 attendees. I think now is probably a good time to kick this this webinar off. So, quick introduction. Actually, I'll tell you what. I won't introduce myself now. What I'll say is thank you very much for joining. Thank you for spending an hour of your Thursday afternoon with us. I'd like to introduce you and pass over to Naveed, who heads up the Microsoft Tech for Social Impact team across at Microsoft. So over to you, Naveed.
Thank you very much, Dave. Thanks for the introduction and welcome everybody. Really appreciate you taking the time to join today. And it's a great turnout as well. So thank you so much for investing the time to join us on this webinar. And I'm honoured to be here today to share with you more about our efforts to create a positive impact for people and the planet in partnership with our valued partners, Academia. So at Microsoft, we believe that technology is a powerful force for empowering people and organizations, right? We see it every day in our work, whether it's data and AI helping predict malaria outbreaks or humanitarian organizations delivering digital literacy to displaced people. So we truly believe that the NGO sector is critical to how we achieve our mission as a company. But to do this, we must make the benefits of world-class technology accessible and relevant for non-profits, NGOs and IGOs. So as a customer-first, partner-led company, we start with the needs of our customers, being you guys, and work with our partners such as Academia to deliver the best outcomes for each organisation. Now, the world has changed so much in profound and fundamental ways. You know, we've seen the role of technology have a positive impact as we've all tried to survive through this pandemic. The level of technology adoption has rapidly accelerated. Now, if we think about that pace of transformation, we need to understand the consequences of that transformation, as well as what our role in that transformation is. We see a digital divide and opportunities continuing to grow, but many people are left behind. The number of children in sub-Saharan Africa that are literate at the age of 10, that's when you stop learning to read and you read to learn, is 10%. So 90% of kids in sub-Saharan Africa can't read. That means they can't get a job. That means the economic opportunity gap is growing, and COVID has an impact, and technology has a huge role to play. We look at the fundamental rights issues. We see a tragic and unlawful wars unfolding across the world, and we see human rights today and every day on the news being violated across the planet, and technology has a role to play. We also look at the urgent climate crisis. In 2021, at the end of June, it was 106 degrees Fahrenheit in Seattle, and it was also baking in Europe at the time. Now, that's not normal. There's a role for the technology to play in supporting the world in becoming a cooler, better place. And then there's also this diminishing trust in big technology organizations. Now, a question about our motives, our motivations. It's critical that we apply technology and innovations to address these challenges without sacrificing our core values such as trust, privacy, transparency, and inclusion. So Microsoft Tech for Social Impact, we realise we need to evolve and think about a different business role model in supporting societal changes in organisations and non-profits like you guys that serve this purpose. So in 2017, Microsoft Philanthropies, which was born in 1982, brought together its efforts with commercial sales and business development, and we came up with Tech for Social Impact. So Microsoft created Tech for Social Impact to empower every non-profit organisation and humanitarian organisation to accelerate social good. So as we work to help everyone achieve more, we are committed to sharing our learnings and our reportings across a variety of societal causes, such as affordable housing, digital skilling, and climate change, just to name a few. To give you some examples, Microsoft has reduced 21 million metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalents by our top suppliers. Each month, Microsoft analyses over 470 billion emails for malware and phishing attempts. So Tech for Social Impact combines our grants with non-profit commercial engagement in a single team to accelerate impact through technology, deliver solutions to empower social breakthroughs and help accelerate Microsoft's philanthropic efforts through our partners and those of our partners' ecosystem. So globally, non-profits received 1.9 billion in donated discounts or technology and services. So not only we provide grants, but we also reinvest any profits made from discounted sales to larger charities back to the sector to help smaller ones. We give free software to those with 10 or fewer employees, which is about 80% of the world's 4 million non-profit organisations. We also help non-profits modify software to meet their specific needs, such as fundraising, mobilising volunteers, in part connecting them with willing helpers in the company's global partner ecosystem. And we also offer digital skills training. As of March 2021, over 30 million learners were reached as part of this global skills initiative. And we're committed to helping in the following ways. Affordable technology solutions. So we work closely with non-profits to create purpose-built solutions on technologies across our product stacks. And we're committed to helping non-profits to get access to best practices, references, architectures, and faster insights. There's capacity building. So just delivering technology isn't the whole answer here. At TSI, we recognise that capacity building is often the key to successful adoption of new digital technology. That's why we are committed to helping organisations get access to the training and certifications to improve your digital skills. And then we have the Microsoft partner ecosystem. So we leverage our tens of thousands of commercial partners such as Academia to create a healthy ecosystem of partners dedicated to delivering solutions and services designed specifically for the non-profit sector. And then there's the social investment model. Incremental funds after costs covered go back to the team and charitable contributions. So everything that we do is reinvested back into the non-profit sector. So the work that we do at TSI and the broader Microsoft Philanthropies organisations is perhaps some of the best and the most wonderful work that we do in these pillars, bringing them to life. The Tech for Social Impact team is truly committed to this sector and to the idea that it's absolutely core to Microsoft's mission to empower every non-profit and international development organisation with technology to accelerate good. And we've got so many direct examples of how we do this. Let's just take a look at a couple. So we look at UNICEF. It's a great example of how we directly support inclusive economic growth. As I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, 10% of children aged 10 in sub-Saharan Africa can read, 90% cannot. UNICEF terms this gap learning poverty. If you can't read, it's very hard to learn, which in turn impacts your economic prospects. Through our partnership and Learning Passport, we have deployed community training to assist with this crisis in 23 countries and 20 more are currently in progress. Millions of kids are registered and nearly 300,000 have completed training. Some of the hardest to reach locations are adopting the fastest, the two biggest adopters being Somalia and Laos. So when we look at our impact in committing a sustainable future, who's helping us there? The National Forest Foundation is a non-profit that works to preserve and protect wildlife habitat and forestry across 193 million acres of national forest system. In partnership with Threshold World, the National Forest Foundation was able to implement our Microsoft Cloud and non-profit solutions. Now they're able to track donors, quantify the impact of their work, and further their mission of environmental restoration and conservation. Each dollar raised translates directly to another tree planted or preserved. And how do we protect fundamental rights? United Kingdom-based non-profits Barnardos connects hundreds of thousands of families and children in need with valuable social services each year. Barnardos is especially passionate about protecting the fundamental rights, safety and health of children. To make the most of those connections, Barnardos must ensure that employees have the technology they need to work efficiently and accurately, and the organisations also need to show potential donors that its work has been a concrete impact. By deploying Microsoft Cloud technologies and Microsoft Surface devices, Barnardos has helped employees be more effective in the field, and it has gained valuable reporting capabilities that have been essential in securing funding to meet the increased demand for services during the COVID-19 pandemic. So, supporting non-profits is part of who we are. It's in our DNA at Microsoft TSA. We have been engaged with charity since 1983 and the inception of its employee giving campaign. But our work has only just begun. This year marks our 6-year anniversary, but we're more motivated than ever. Truly reaching our vision at real scale requires a broad base of amazing teammates like you guys in every corner of the globe. In 2022, we provided 3.8 billion in grants and discounted software services and 270,000 non-profits organisations with modern, secure and scalable cloud solutions. So everything that we do is driven by this deep sense of purpose and timeless values of trust. So the question really is, what is our role in modern day? Milton Friedman, a renowned economist, said that the role of a company is to serve its shareholders, that greed is good. But the definition has evolved because it turns out that companies don't operate in some parallel universe or some vacuum outside of the planet. We are all affected by the world around us. Whether it's global warming, or it's poverty, or it's our next market in Africa, billions of people are affected. So the new definition of what a company needs to do, every company, came from the Business Roundtable. That's 181 CEOs who come together and they say the role of a company is not to serve stakeholders, but to serve its shareholders. Our shareholders are our employees, our partners, and most importantly, our customers, the communities that we operate in. And our philosophy at Microsoft is simple. Companies that can do more, should do more, and we at Microsoft are doing more. And with that, I would like to thank you once again for the great work that you do and taking the time to join today. I'm going to pass you back over to my colleague, Dave.
Thank you very much, Nav. So I'm just about to bring up on screen my presentation. There we go. So you should all now be able to see my screen, hopefully. So first of all, thank you very much for that, Nav. That's a great insight to the work that you guys do across at Microsoft. I think sometimes it's easy to forget the amount of work that the Microsoft TSI team do. So yeah, brilliant to hear the inside story on that. So from my side, guys, again, thank you very, very much for joining us today. So a few quick introductions. So my name is Dave Prince. I'm the head of Microsoft Solutions here at Academia. So my role is all about speaking to customers or potential customers to get an understanding of how they're using their technology to complement their business requirements, and more importantly, how we can help you get there. So Academia as a company, we've been going for 20 years. Actually, it was our 20th anniversary last month. And as the name implies, we were originally focused on providing IT solutions and services into the education sector. So since then, a lot's changed over those 20 years. And now we provide a wide array of services to our customers, regardless of what sector they're in. So Microsoft, of course, probably don't need much of an introduction. So Microsoft are one of Academia's key partners, primarily because of the fantastic offering that they provide and that they can bring to us here. So some of us in the room here, looking at the attendees, up to 62 now, some of us might know that Microsoft do a lot more than just Microsoft Office, one of the things that they're most commonly renowned for. And actually today, what they're doing is providing solutions that can help you and your charity grow, whether that be productivity tools, device management, through to security and automation. So it's a really fantastic company for us to be to partner with and for us to help you adopt. Finally, we're also joined today with our friends from Charities Buying Group. So we've been partnering Charities Buying Group for the last few years, and part of that is because we fully support and believe in what their role is to help charities and to help non-profits get the most from any service that goes, whether that be IT, whether that be telecoms, whether that be just utility bills, whatever it could be. So quick personal thank you from my behalf to Steve and the team over at CBG for spreading the word, because I appreciate quite a lot of our attendance today is stemmed through their kind of outreach to their members. So why do we do these type of sessions? Well, we do them because we want to see organisations making the most from technology. We want to see you succeed, and we want to see you embrace these technologies to help you achieve your mission statements and goals. And more importantly, we want to make sure that technology is hassle-free. So I'm not expecting you to read everything on the screen here, but in my role, I hear a lot of different things. Whether that be, look, we're paying a lot of money for our IT, but we're not actually sure what we're getting from it. And even worse, we're paying a lot for our IT, but actually we're seeing it more as a hindrance or a blocker to our productivity. We see other organisations who say they receive 8 invoices a month for IT systems, whether that be for project management systems or a CRM platform or phones or printers, whatever it might be. And they're not quite sure because they just sign them off at the end of the day and go, oh yeah, we've got those printers, but here's an invoice, let's just sign it off. But they're actually not sure whether they're needing this solution or whether they're actually making the most from the solution. Another one as well, which is very, very kind of prudent these days, is being being conscious about your security. And one of the hardest bits is actually knowing where to start on that security journey. Now, I'm going to apologise in advance here for the bluntness of this one, but this is genuinely and actually surprising. It's said to me by customers quite a lot when I'm talking about their IT, and it is just generally it sucks. It doesn't work. It's not good. Now, from our perspective, of course, this is really disappointing to hear. Technology shouldn't be problematic. So what I'm going to do here, and I promise these 2 slides here are probably as in-depth as it's going to get throughout this session here, but I also appreciate now with 66 attendees that you guys could fall into one of these categories, you could fall into the other, or it might be neither. But regardless, when I'm speaking with our customers, I typically see 2 polar opposite sort of approaches to managing IT. So this first example shows what we see with a lot of smaller charities, non-profits, and actually, to be fair, sometimes businesses. So in this instance here, we've got a very flat and somewhat disparate IT setup, and there's no form of centralized IT management nor systems. So in this example here, we've got 3 users. All of them have got some form of Office application installed on their device. They've got their email set up on their device, and they've got their files sitting on their device. Now, the only common denominator here, when we're kind of talking about centralized IT, is email. So that's the only thing which is, let's say, in the cloud, so to speak. Now, again, with a lot of the smaller businesses or non-profits or charities, we are seeing that there's actually a surprising amount of organisations out there who have a company name, but are using the likes of Gmail or Yahoo potentially as their mail system. Now, whilst it kind of carries out the core fundamental need of email, it's not portraying your brand correctly. But regardless of what it is, most organisations now, if not every organisation, relies on email in some way, shape or form. Now, I'm going to do a quick introduction here to a chap called Tim. Tim is the guy in the suit on the right hand side of your screen. Now, in Tim's instance here, one day he comes into the office and his laptop decides to pack up. Now, in the above situation, he is of course left without a device to work on. He will then have to wait for a period of time for a new device to be ready for him, whether that is bought from the local shop, ordered online, however it might be, or potentially through another partner. But he'll have to wait, and eventually when his new device arrives, it might arrive in the office, what happens next is Tim will have to reinstall his Office applications or any other applications that he needs. He'll then reconnect his mail client to his email system. But one thing that we see, an unfortunate amount, is actually his data has gone. And what Tim's now got to do is build that data back up from scratch. So not the easiest task for him to be doing. So the second sort of organisation that we see is ones who may rely on a server in the office, for example. So there is your office server. Now, when we're talking about what this office server does and the tasks that it carries out, we're typically referring to things like Active Directory. Now, that's probably the most technical phrase you're going to hear from me on this call. But Active Directory effectively is the brains behind the scenes of any IT infrastructure. So it looks after your usernames, your passwords, your account management, your groups. Now, the next thing we see is group policy. Now, group policy effectively is telling your device how to behave. So setting a desktop wallpaper, for example, saying that people can't delete certain applications or they can't go into certain folders they shouldn't be accessing. We've then got user data. Now, user data are files that belong to or are created by an individual. They typically live on the likes of your desktop, your documents folder, your pictures, whatever it may be. Now, there's also the trusty old shared drive. So some of you may have a server in the office, you may have a P drive or an S drive or whatever it might be, but your shared drive. Now, your shared drive is where you will store data that is going to be visible to the wider team, the wider organization. So sharing a file that you may have created, but putting it in a place that multiple people can access. We've then got printing. So more often than not, these servers actually underpin your ability to print. And then finally, we've got a telephone system. Now, unless your charity or non-profit has embraced something like a VoIP system or mobile phones, for example, you'll likely have a chunky old box sitting in the office somewhere that you might just walk past every day and not know is there. But this box in particular, that facilitates your ability to make or receive calls via typically handsets sitting on desks. Now, the issue here is all of these things are sitting inside your office. If we take a device outside of the office, that device's ability or your staff member's ability to work on that device won't be anywhere near the same level that they would do if they were in the office. In some cases, actually, apart from email, could be completely unable to work, so accessing files and whatnot. So this is where the likes of technologies such as VPN or remote desktop servers come into play that sit in your network and allow your devices to connect externally to your inside network. Now, that will give you a degree of access to your user data, your shared files, your printing system, whatever it could be. Now, the issue with these, or the downsides of these, is that they're accompanied by administrative overhead. So got to make sure the lights are kept on these devices, make sure that they're fully maintained, that they're kept up to date, and that they're just always working for when staff need to connect in. But also associated with it is typically licensing costs or maintenance costs. And of course, then you've got your power and your utility bills as well that will all add up to the ability to keep that function operational. So I promise you that's as technical as it gets this session. So what we're going to do now is focus on some more kind of the key business outcomes and objectives and how technology can help you reach those. So when we at Academia talk to our customers or prospective customers about technology, first of all, we focus on what we call kind of 6 core pillars, or the core pillars to success. Now, any organisation, regardless of your shape, your size, your sector, will typically want to cover all of these 6 sections. So we're talking here productivity, collaboration, security, accessibility, awareness and support. So these are the 6 pillars that we feel that every organisation should need or do need in order to succeed. So in line with Microsoft and Microsoft 365 in particular, let's cover these in a little bit more depth. So productivity. When we talk about productivity, the obvious place to start is Microsoft Office. So your well-known Word, Excel and PowerPoint, for example, that I'm sure at one point during our lives we will have used to create a document, create a spreadsheet, create a nice engaging PowerPoint presentation. Now, one thing that we do see quite often is that organisations will buy, let's say, retail copies of Office. So you might go to Amazon, you might go to your local shop and buy a copy of Office 2019, let's say. Now, whilst there's nothing wrong with doing that per se, come 2024, you are 5 years behind the curve here. So you're 5 years behind the latest technologies, latest features, latest capabilities. So with Microsoft 365, you get the latest version of Office regardless. There's no 2019, 2023. You are always on the current version of Office. Now, I'm going to cover a couple of kind of lesser known gems, let's say here. So starting with Microsoft Planner. Microsoft Planner, absolutely fantastic tool for organising your team's workloads. So let's say you've got some ongoing projects or some org-wide improvement plans, whatever it could be. So let's say, as an example, you have a team of 6 people working on a fundraising project. As the team leader, you can create a planner, and from that planner, you can add your tasks in, and you can actually visualize in a kind of Kanban style planning board what your work looks like and what you need to get from where you are now to where you need to be. But also with Planner, you can delegate those tasks out to individuals within your organization as well. So following on from Planner, we've got To Do. Now, Microsoft To Do, exactly what it says on the tin. So where Planner is your team-wide or organization-wide planner, To Do is your personal to-do list. And because this is part of the Microsoft 365 suite, it's nice and tightly integrated as well. So let's say, for example, I happen to be one of those members of that team who is working on a fundraising project. And my manager has created this big planner and they've assigned tasks 1, 6, 9 and 12 to me. Instead of me having to go into that planner and start nitpicking, go, right, that's me and that's me and that's me. Because a task has been assigned to me in Planner, it appears in my to-do list. So it gives me a nice condensed list of tasks that I need to do. And finally, Power Automate. So Power Automate, quite simply, takes mundane, repetitive tasks or cumbersome tasks and allows you to, well, automate it. So Power Automate is incredibly powerful, hence the name. So what we're not going to do in this session here is dive too deep into this. However, this is going to be a follow-up session to this because the tool can generally kind of transform how you approach these kind of easily repeatable and mundane tasks and really help you get some more time on your hands. So our next section here, collaboration. Now, starting with the most common tool within the Microsoft 365 Armory, you've got Microsoft Outlook. You've got your email and you've got your calendar. Now, I'm not going to touch too much on this at the minute because it's pretty straightforward. We're all familiar with calendars and email. Teams, on the other hand, a lot of us will have become very accustomed to Teams or alternatives kind of during lockdown. So your favorite Teams meetings where you get all of the teams together remotely because back then we had to. Now, COVID-19 did very and the associated lockdowns forced a lot of us to work very quickly and having to adapt to using new technologies such as Teams to host online meetings. So whether that be with colleagues or external parties or our communities. However, Teams is a lot more than just chats and meeting. And when it's actually implemented properly, can act as a central hub to your organisation. Academia, we've been using Teams for the best part of 7 years now. It is part of our bread and butter. You come into work in the morning, you'll open Teams, and there you've got your calendar and your chats, and you've got your upcoming appointments, and we've got where all of our data is stored, depending on which team we're in. So much like Power Automate, Teams is also deserving of its own follow-up session to this as well, because there's a lot that we can cover to really kind of help you get the most out of this. So we will be covering that in a bit more depth shortly. So moving on from Teams, we've got Microsoft Forms. Now, Microsoft Forms is a fantastic way for you to gather and collate information from anyone. So we still see a lot of organisations sending out emails to their communities, so asking them to respond to things like their availability or to complete a survey on the service that you provide to help you kind of better improve your service based on feedback. And what typically happens here is that someone will send this survey or kind of request for information out, and when they get this information back in dribs and drabs, they then have to spend their time collating all of this information, going through this raft of potentially hundreds of emails to kind of go, that person said that and that person said this. And what they'll then do is take that information and typically collate it in something like Excel. So Forms, on the other hand, actually allows you to quickly generate a survey. It quite literally takes 5 minutes. Very, very quickly generate a survey, send it out to your communities and have them respond. And what will happen with those responses is they'll land in a centralized place, which can then break down this information so you can get nice visualizations like bar graphs, pie charts, word clouds, all of these things based on what your kind of recipients have filled in. Now, also, because we still love to this day to manipulate data in Excel, all of the reports or all of the responses, beg your pardon, that are fed back to you can be exported into Excel. Now, finally, on the collaboration piece, we've got Microsoft Bookings. So much in the same way as above, we see a lot of organisations sending out emails asking people when they can attend workshops or touting the fact they have workshops, and to sign up to them, please reply to this email. Now, with Bookings, you can create a portal for all of the services that your non-profit or charity offers. So it could be consultation, could be workshops, could be charity drives, could be anything you wanted it to be. And then you can point your communities to this booking page. And then what that will do is that will allow the recipients to go, I'm free on this day at this time. Brilliant, that works for you guys as well. So it's integrated with your calendars, integrated with your services. You can very, very quickly publish your service, but also at the same time reduce the amount of to and fro back and forth between yourself and your community. Sorry, my presentation froze there for a moment. So now on to our third and very important pillar here, security. So still to this day, security is overlooked in a lot of situations and a lot of scenarios, which ultimately has the negative effect that it opens up organisations to potential data breaches and potential compromise. So ensuring that you're keeping your organisation, your employees and your community's data safe is absolutely key. So how do we achieve this? So if we start with identity management, simply put, identity management is your user account. It's the creation, assignment and associated governance surrounding your username and passwords in this instance. Now, sometimes we find, and we do this a lot, that creating new accounts is a priority. When a new starter in the business, quick, we need to get a new account. But actually disabling that account when that user leaves or when that member of staff leaves isn't treated with the same degree of urgency. So leaving a former employee's account open and active and still able to access all of your data when they've moved on from your organisation is a huge risk to any organisation. So device management, the next key one here. So device management gives us the ability to centrally manage our devices, which allows us in turn to deploy applications down to them, make sure that they're up to date and protected against the latest vulnerabilities and exploits. We can remotely lock or wipe the device should they go missing or AWOL, and so on. So with Microsoft 365, device management is cloud-based. So if we go back to our example earlier where everything is available in the office, but only parts of it are available outside of the office, because Microsoft's device management, Intune in this case here, is cloud-based. It doesn't matter whether your device is in Birmingham or Barbados, for example. Don't know why I picked those two, but there we go. So it doesn't matter of which instance that is, because it's a cloud-based system, your device management is everywhere. It doesn't just have to be in the office to get the full capabilities. So moving on to the endpoint protection side of things. So endpoint protection is the fancy new name for antivirus. So it's called this now because more exists than just viruses. So we've got malware and we've got the dreaded ransomware, which is unfortunately it's a very big problem these days, ransomware. So endpoint protection is one of your first line of defenses to keep your organization, keep your staff safe from these malicious attacks. And then finally here, we're talking about resource access. So with all of this, all of your data, all of your information in the cloud, it's very easy to kind of say, well, okay, that sounds scary. How do I protect it? Don't worry. This is where things like resource access, and in particular things like multi-factor authentication and conditional access, come into play. So when we talk about resource access, it's just guaranteeing that your data is being accessed by trusted individuals and by trusted devices. And if neither of those two boxes are ticked, then sorry, but there's no entry. So why is all of this important? So aside from ensuring that your organization is as secure as possible and following security best practices, we're also seeing a lot in the non-profit and charity sector that actually securing contracts or funding or grants, for example, that these issuing bodies, let's say, are requesting or at least kind of seeking information from charities, that you are to a degree of security, or at least you're able to achieve a degree of security. So one of the best ways of doing this is, and one of the most common, is cybersecurity essentials. So cybersecurity essentials, UK government issued effectively baseline to say you are securing yourselves against these. We're seeing that is now very common in winning bids, contracts, or whether it be securing funding or grants. So everything that we've spoken about on this page so far, absolutely key to securing cybersecurity essentials. So on to pillar 4, another very important topic here, we have accessibility. Now, ensuring that those who work for us or with us are able to interact and engage with our content is so important. And ensuring that this content is accessible to anyone with a learning difficulty or a physical impairment, to ensure that inclusivity is to achieve inclusivity is equally as important. So what we'll touch on here are some of the tools that help drive equality and inclusivity to ensure that everyone has a great experience working with you. So first of all, we've got read aloud. Now, read aloud takes the written word in documents, in spreadsheets, whatever it might be, or in websites, and speaks it through a microphone or through your, not through a microphone, beg your pardon, through speakers or through a headset. We've then got immersive reader. Now, immersive reader is designed for those with learning difficulties or visual impairments, and it takes the content of these documents or websites or chats and puts them into a more comfortable view. So you can adjust things like font size, line spacing and background without having to redesign the entire document itself. You can take a document, standard formatting, immersive reader will take that and make it more engaging for anyone. Now, actually, on to one of my favourite subjects or favourite bits now. It's actually subtitles and captioning. And you might think it's a bit of a weird one to get excited about, but this alone is incredibly powerful. Really, really great capability within the Microsoft toolset. So let's say, for example, you're presenting a PowerPoint presentation to an audience of 200 people. In my case, not quite 200, but I'll take 64 happily. So out of these 200 people, let's say many of them are hard of hearing, or in some cases, completely deaf. Now, whilst standing at the front of the audience here, you can actually enable live captioning to have your spoken word appear under your presentation almost instantaneously. And when I say instantaneously, it's quite literally a sub-second behind the actual spoken word. Now, another great example of captioning is when you're working with individuals or a group of people where English isn't their first language. So in this case here, let's take the same situation as above. You are presenting to 200 people, but none of them understand English. Now, subtitling captioning can also take the spoken word that I'm speaking right now and translate it on the fly into subtitles into their native language. So whether that be French, German, Chinese, Urdu, take your pick. And I actually did a test with this with a colleague a couple of days back, actually, and they were absolutely outstanding as to how my English voice was being translated by the device into very accurate Urdu. It was fantastic. So the power of this is really, really incredible. And then finally here, we've got accessibility insights. Now, accessibility insights checks your documents and spreadsheets or presentations created within Office and makes sure that it meets certain accessibility requirements. So for example, it'll pick up when you don't have alternate text on images to help functions like read aloud explain what is on the screen. If your line spacing is too tight, it'll pick up on that. Or let's say, for example, the text color that you've selected is going to be hard to read on a colored background, for example, and so on. So from the moment you start creating these documents within Microsoft Office, Accessibility Insights is in the background advising you that actually to make the document more accessible, to go and make these changes. So far, we've covered a lot on the tools and features that your charity and non-profits can benefit from to help you succeed. So what we're going to do now is move on to two equally as important areas. So with all of this great technology, it can be really hard to kind of know where to start and really know how to embrace it. So this is where our familiarization and adoption training sessions come in. So we can help your organisation make the most of these tools, whether this be via ad hoc training sessions or a continuous professional development plan, and help your key stakeholders and staff understand the potential that tools like Microsoft 365 can actually bring to the table and how you can help your organisation embrace it. So more often than not, and one of the key things to these familiarisation and adoption sessions is more often than not, we see organisations buying solutions, buying products, buying licenses. And let's say, for example, those licenses entitle you to 12 things. You might only be using 3 of them properly. So this is where our training can come in and help you unlock the additional capacity that these tools bring. And again, another really important area here, going back to the security side of things, is the security awareness training. So unfortunately, and I don't like saying this, but humans are the weakest link in any cybersecurity defense. So with all the technologies put in place to protect your organization, they can be easily circumnavigated, so to speak, by actually exploiting the individual as opposed to the technology. So this is why cybersecurity awareness training is so important in helping your staff to understand how to identify and avoid common cyber attack techniques. So, for example, last year, actually, the vast majority of successful cyber attacks started with human interaction, whether this be via compromised username and password, or whether this by a phishing attack and people giving away information they shouldn't have done. So training your staff is just as important as actually the technical security layer that you provide. And then on to our final pillar here. Final pillar is support. So our mantra here at Academia is to make technology simple, because we've lived in a world where in some cases technology has been overly complicated. And what this has done is led to the introduction of multiple systems, multiple platforms, multiple servers. And effectively what we're doing here is we're increasing the volume of moving parts involved here. And kind of by having so many moving parts beg your pardon, losing my words there. So having these moving parts can ultimately lead to an increased chance of things going wrong. So when things go wrong, tech will of course get a bad name for itself. We want to keep technology as simple as possible for you and just as fluid as possible for your organization to be using. So that said, technology can still go wrong, and it does still go wrong from time to time. So this is why at Academia, we also have a team of well-trained help desk staff and highly skilled delivery engineers to help our customers get over these road bumps and ultimately implement solutions that are right for you. So in the event that anything does go wrong, whether this be a network issue, a device fault, a forgotten username or password, our teams can be here to kind of help you out there. So we tend to find that this particular solution works really well for charities and non-profits who have little to no IT team. Now, unfortunately, these types of organisations that suffer the most when it comes to tech is because the IT role is typically handled by someone who has a bit of IT know-how, but it's not necessarily their day job, and therefore they can't focus on ensuring that the technology is actually where it needs to be to support the organisation. Now, second offering here from Academia is platform support. So platform support is where it's typically designed for charities, non-profits who have a degree or a small in-house IT team who need to be remained on focusing on supporting your staff. But they may not necessarily have the bandwidth, the time or the know-how to actually support certain other platforms. So in this instance here, the IT team would own the platform, but Academia can be on hand to help, whether that be for guidance, support, or to make any required changes. And then finally here, we've got professional services. So simply put, you can ask us to come in and implement or commission new technology for you, or train your staff on how to use these systems. So with any of our implementation projects, we'll carry out the required work, document the implementation and hand over to your tech team. And we generally find this works best with organisations who are more than happy and comfortable supporting their environment, but might actually need to burst out to an external party just for help on a specific project. So as you can see here, there's multiple ways that technology can help your organisation, how we can help you embed that technology as well. So looping around to what we see here. So starting with one of the big ones, and as promised, we will have a separate session on Microsoft Teams, but Teams is a natural place to start here. So what we often see is organisations are using Teams for chat and chat only. And whilst there's nothing wrong with this, you're quite literally using 10% of the functionality and capability that Teams can bring to your organisation. We also see organisations creating teams or groups of individuals, but in a very ad hoc and unstructured fashion that can ultimately lead to confusion as to what's where. Now, this is very common, and it's, to be honest with you, the natural fallout of kind of down to how we had to embrace solutions such as Teams during lockdown. But by undertaking a review of Teams in line with your charity or non-profit structure, we can help you create a well-structured and logical setup within Teams that can help you and your staff find what they need when they need it, taking away a bit of frustration as to, oh, is that there, is that here, or I've lost track of what's actually where anymore. And in turn, that can really help you start unlocking the potential that Teams has to build out from there to get the most from the tool. Now, as some of you may already know, Teams can also be used as your phone system. So if we go back to our illustration earlier, it can replace your legacy phone system, and it can actually enable your laptop or your desktop to become your phone, so to speak. So now you can, depending on the handset itself as well, also have Teams ring your physical handset on your desk if you do still wish to have a handset. Now, this is where Teams can greatly help, is it, again, untethering ourselves from the office, untethering ourselves from the desk, allowing ourselves to be fully hybrid or remote working, or yeah, combination of the both. And then finally within Teams as well, Teams is more than just what comes out the box. And out the box is actually how most of us use it. But Teams has a raft of integrations with solutions such as Workday, Jira, Trello, Workday. You can even get YouTube on there as well, actually, which allows you to bring any external systems that you have, again, into that one single place, truly making Teams your central hub. So what we also see is when we're talking about security again, so addressing the elephant in the room once more, unfortunately, it doesn't take much these days for organisations to become a victim of cyber attack. And going back to our security awareness point, all it can take is one person clicking on the wrong link or giving out the wrong information to someone can actually bring down organisations. So one of the most common attempts we see is phishing. Phishing is effectively trying to trick people into thinking that a legitimate email has landed, but actually that email is not legitimate. It's pointing to a website that looks very much like a website you're used to, but it's not. And when your users log in there, they enter their username, enter their password, and unfortunately for them, that username and password is now with cyber criminals to use how they wish. So to summarize the security element here, and again going back to the what we see point, is that security, whilst it is becoming more kind of, let's say, kind of more aware to the wider staff, wider population, it's still not quite where it needs to be when we're talking about looking at security as an actual mindset. We are getting there though. We are getting there. Moving on to device management, so touched on this briefly earlier on. So device management is a key component of cybersecurity essentials, but also it's just very good practice. So by not leveraging device management, we end up with sporadic and inconsistent approaches to how we handle our devices. So from ensuring that they're patched with the latest updates to protect you from these bad actors, through to making sure that we have a good inventory as to which devices, their hardware age, and what software is running on these devices across the organisation. Now, one of the biggest areas that device management can actually help you in is by streamlining your new starter process. So let's say, for example, you've got a new member of staff who joins a team and you go and procure a device for them. Before that device can actually be handed over to them, someone's got to sit down and configure that device accordingly, and more often than not, manually. So with device management, we can take a new device, we can deliver it to your member of staff, or potentially an existing member of staff who's just getting a new laptop, and that device can be, like I said, delivered to their house, delivered to the office. All they need to do is unbox the laptop, open it up, connect it to a network, and device management will kick in and say, there's all of the applications you need, and there's all of the configuration that you need to actually work. So this alone is a huge time saver, not just for the IT team, but also for your new member of staff or the person getting a new device. So when we're talking about device management, of course, there's a raft of things that we can do, but actually the onboarding of new devices and making your life easier when you need to get a new device into people's hands will save so much time and effort and frustration that device management alone is well worth taking a look into. So finally on here, we're talking about support and awareness. So a lot of charities and non-profits have seen, that we speak to, see IT as a large expense that they've kind of thought they can get on without. Now, whilst that is true in some cases, the actual drawbacks to this is quite a poor end user experience and quite a poor experience for your staff and ultimately the wider organisation. So IT support doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be set up properly and as fluid as possible to help your organisation succeed. So on top of that as well, along with support, you get the guidance and you get knowledge transfer from the support parties to help your organisation make the most from the technology. And that's something which can be achieved via a strong partnership. And then finally here, in some cases, we speak to customers who quite frankly don't know where to turn to get their support. So going back to our example earlier, you might have a third-party support for your phone system, third party for your printers, another party for your internet and network, and so on. So having a trusted IT partner who can really help you bring this all together and act as a go-to team for finding a solution for your problem can actually drastically save you time, but also increase that experience that your staff are getting. Now, onto the non-profit bit and how really getting the taking our title of our session today and saying making the most of your non-profit benefits and donations. Now, Microsoft 365 Business Premium is effectively your productivity, collaboration, security, and your accessibility. Now, any non-profit, any charity is entitled to 10 free licenses for these. Now, on top of that, any addition past 10, heavily discounted. Further to Microsoft 365 as well, you get Power BI licenses, you get Power Apps licenses, and you get Dynamics licenses. Now, the reason I've left Azure separate, and talking to someone the other day, with Azure, charities and non-profits can receive $2,000 worth of credit a year that can be used on any Azure service. Now, one of the kind of fantastic analogy that someone said to me the other day was, if I gave you $2,000 worth of Amazon credits, you'd spend it in a flash. Be given $2,000 worth of Azure credits and you might not know where to start. So this is where you can come talk to us, find out more, explore how you can use that credit to help your organization. And of course, on the Windows and Surface side of things as well, Windows 10, Windows 11 licenses, you get 50 of those free as a non-profit or a non-profit or charity, but also discounted pricing on Microsoft Surface devices as well. So there's a lot that Microsoft bring to the table for non-profits and charities. Now, specifically calling out Microsoft 365 Business Premium here, going back to our 6 pillars, Microsoft Business Premium can account to and help you with 4 of those 6 pillars. Now, if I'd have asked maybe 10 minutes ago how much it would cost to get everything that I've spoken about so far in this conversation, I can tell you that you can achieve all of this with the exception of the awareness and support, which is of course where Academia can come in to help complement the Microsoft licensing. But a lot of you might have thought, oh, that sounds like all of that's going to be really, really, really expensive. As a non-profit or a charity, you get 10 licenses for free. 11 to 300, however, like I said earlier, heavily discounted. You're looking at around £4.80, give or take, per user per month. It's not a huge amount at all for everything that we've spoken about there. But of course, making the most of those licenses is where we can really help you and say, these are the tools that you have. Let's work with you to set these up accordingly. So bringing it all together, and I'm very conscious that I've only got a couple of minutes left. I might overrun for the benefit of the recording here, and anyone who does wish to stay on for a couple more minutes. But if we bring this back round to where we started earlier for the example where you've got a device that's in the office that works fine, but you've got a device that's outside the office that doesn't work so well. When we start moving to a cloud first approach here and we start really embracing Microsoft 365 technology, we can start with your email. So again, talking about moving away from the Gmail, let's say, or the Yahoo, and actually going for a branded email system that matches your organization. So moving your email up into the cloud is thing one. And then we take a look at what your server on site is doing. And we can say, we'll move your identity management across to Entra ID. We'll move your device management across to Intune. We'll move your user data across to cloud storage, in this instance here, OneDrive for Business. Move your shared data into Teams. And we can move your print system into a secure cloud-based print solution. Now, at this point, you can say goodbye to the server. You can say goodbye to the server. You can say goodbye to the administrative overhead and the maintenance and replacing of disks when they fail, and reduce your energy consumption within your office. Now, the final piece here, again, telephony. We could take a look at moving that across to the likes of Microsoft Teams. And what this will do is this allows you to move your physical handset, let's say, to a software-based phone system. And that in turn becomes your phone. So now everything you have is cloud-based. And it really doesn't matter now whether you're inside the office or outside the office, you are getting the same experience regardless. Now, I've got to say again, because it is such a key thing here, the security. A lot of people, especially if you can rewind, let's say, I don't know, as little as 5 years ago, sometimes there's a lot of apprehension and nervousness surrounding moving to the cloud, because how could you guarantee your data was safe? There's a big concern very early on in the kind of introduction to cloud. Now, when we're talking about securing these services here, again, we're talking about things like multi-factor authentication, something you know, your username and password, and something you have, your phone, to actually prove that that is your identity. So also conditional access, which in line with, I probably should have worded that as compliance policies, effectively says, if your device is secure, we'll let you connect to this data. If your device is not secure, we won't let you connect to this data. We then have endpoint protection. So again, your antivirus, anti-ransomware, anti-malware that sits and protects your device. We then have disk encryption, because ultimately at some point data will sit on your laptop. Disk encryption protects that data from someone else getting their hands on the laptop and taking the data with them. And then app protection policy. App protection policy, absolutely fantastic solution. We're in a world now where there's a bit of a blurred line between a personal device and a work device, and ultimately what we find is a lot of people are still using, they're using personal devices for accessing work content. Now that's great until an employee downloads all of your work data to their phone. Now, if that user leaves the organization, they take that data with them. They take the record of all of the people that you've worked with, all of the partners that you've worked with. So what app protection policies does is it effectively containerizes, it puts a bubble around your work data on someone's personal phone, but it does it without managing the device, and it does it without interfering with the end user device. There is no management, no underhanded kind of with seeing your browsing history and whatnot, nothing like that at all. But it gives you the ability as an organization that if that employee were to leave the business or leave the charity, that you could just go pull their data off just like that without interfering with their phone. And of course, ensuring that people can actually use these technologies and are embracing them properly, this is where the user familiarization and support kicks in as well. So what we're left here now, in very simple terms, is one device. Let's say here, for example, one device per person, or maybe you've got a shared device, but ultimately that device is running Windows 10, Windows 11, which everyone is familiar with. You'll have a single login. So you log into your laptop with the same login that you use to log into your email and into Teams. We're trying to keep this as simple as possible so that people have got less passwords to remember. We then also have the device actually managed. So we're able to deploy applications, make sure that you've got a nice, consistent, secure baseline across the organization. And of course, Microsoft Office, so your Word, your Excel, your PowerPoint, and your Outlook. You've got OneDrive for storing your personal data in. So I say personal data, personal work data. So in the example of Tim earlier on, who lost his device and lost his data, with OneDrive, that is constantly syncing to the cloud. So if that device were to vanish and be pulled from underneath him, put a new one in, and he picks up exactly where he left off. Teams can be your central your central organizational hub. So where you can have shared data, where you can collaborate and communicate with your colleagues, but also with external parties as well. Your device can be your phone, as we touched on earlier. You can still print like you would have printed before, but ultimately we've got the device under some form of managed security. So we're protecting the device, which protects your services and protects your organizations. And what you're left there is everything that you need to work with, all on that one device. So that is the end of my my coverage of Microsoft 365 and how academia can help your non-profit and charity really kind of succeed and excel through the use of the tools that they provide. As mentioned earlier on this call, we have got Charities Buying Group with us. I'm not too sure at the minute how many are on the call. But for those of you who aren't aware of Charities Buying Group, so Charities Buying Group have been around since 2002, commissioned by Parliament in 2004, and have been saving charities, non-profits money ever since. So there are approximately, I think, 25 unique services that the Charities Buying Group can help charities, non-profits with when it comes to saving money and ultimately making sure you've got the best deal that you possibly can get. So at the minute, I think the last count was 70,000 odd members, if I'm not mistaken. And yeah, as the bottom bit there says, helped over the best part of 20 years now save charities millions of pounds. So that could be utility bills, telecoms, insurance, IT solutions. Also, I don't know how long this has actually been going on for, but when I speak to Steve, he's always very excited to tell me that they are very proud sponsor of the National Walking Football Alliance as well. Fantastic cause. If you have a couple of minutes later, do check out their site at nwfa.co.uk. Absolutely brilliant cause, and yeah, can understandably see why they're very proud to partner with them. So what's next then? So if anything on this particular call or this particular session has piqued some interest, do feel free to reach out. Now, there is a link on the page at the minute, so discovery.academia.co.uk, the QR code if you wish to take a quick snap of that as well, where you can go ahead and you can book a discovery call with us. Now, it's absolutely no commitment discovery call. Pick up the phone, give us a shout, tell us some of your pain points, tell us some of the things that we can do to help, and we'll happily have that call with you. Now, following on from that as well, we do offer a discovery deep dive, which is taking that call but fleshing it out a lot more, potentially coming to see you, sit down in a room, identify what your strategy and your goals are for the kind of coming, let's say, year to 3 years, and we will help roadmap that out for you. And off the back of that as well, you do get a report as well. So you'll get a report. So this is what we've identified. This is how we think you could actually use these technologies to really benefit your organization. And with these sessions, we take a very kind of thought leadership approach here. So we're not just going to be talking about the tech. We're going to be talking about how leveraging the tech can help your teams, help your departments succeed, but ultimately understanding how your business operates will in turn help us to help you find the best tech to fit your needs, beg your pardon. So following on from that as well, we've got an old-fashioned telephone number, we've got an old-fashioned email address, but still feel free to reach out to them. And also, because we are modern, we are also on social media. So do feel free to follow us on any of those platforms if you want any updates about future webinars, future events, or just general kind of ongoings as to what's happening in the tech world. And then my final slide, little bit of a I don't want to say premature shout out, but as I mentioned earlier on, we will be having other seminars here. So getting the most out of Teams, a deeper dive into the likes of Power Automate and device management. There'll be a security-based webinar as well that we'll be hosting, but then also we can do some webinars on things like forms and bookings, because those two tools alone are fantastically powerful, and I can see so much benefit regardless of the organisation from those particular tools. So I've just noticed I've not done a thank you for attending slide, but you can hear it from me in person. We'll keep on the line for a couple of minutes for any Q&As or any questions, comments, feedback anyone's got. But for those of you who need to be elsewhere or wish to drop off, thank you so much for attending. It's been lovely speaking to you, and yeah, take care and hopefully hear from you soon. Thank you very much.